In this world, there was an awakening phenomenon called enlightenment. Often called the first qualification to become a hero, enlightenment was a form of personal insight said to occur when a person surpassed one's limits. Active duty heroes were all enlightened, but because of numerous experiences and training were required to reach enlightenment, most cadets had yet to experience enlightenment. Of course, there were exceptions, like Kim Sung-hoo or Shin Jong-hak. They were enlightened at the age of 15 and 17 respectively. An enlightened person can see their gifts, skills, abilities objectively, and thus train more efficiently. Furthermore, enlightenment allowed one to acquire clear rewards from towers and dungeons. The Hero Association called the phenomenon the status window. It was an established fact that a status window could only be seen by its viewer. But because I liked exceptions, I also put exceptions in this setting. In place of one's eyes, one could use other sensory organs or other mediums such as a book or a weapon to see one's own status. Special enlightenment naturally came with special powers, though it was a bit of a spoiler. The main character should undergo 2 enlightenments because of this setting. Is this that? According to my setting, the laptop could be said to be a medium for enlightenment. I began to grow a bit excited. No one hated being special, but rather than being happy, analyzing the situation came first. When I hit the Enter key on the keyboard, several windows popped up. Synchronization complete. Kim Chu-dong status reset. Kim Hajin status transferred. All status reset. 10 points acquired. Kim Hajin current SP 64. Stats. Variable stats. Strength 1.2, Stamina 1.3, Speed 1.5, Perception 2, Vitality 1.3, and Magic Power 1. In variable stats, Intelligence 4.105 out of 10, Perseverance 5.010 out of 10, Luck 6.330 out of 10, Charm 4.135 out of 10. Point 10 will disappear in 10 days if not used. Gift, Observation and Reading. Null attribute. Observation. You can observe the characters in your vision. Reading. Anytime you want. You can read the laptop setting book without a medium. Arts. 0 out of 3. Physique. 0 out of 3. Setting intervention. Authority. Using SP, you can modify or add settings to a non-living target. Using SP and relating to target Kim Hajin, you can modify or add settings to a status, gift, art, or physique. Novice consideration. Once only, you can write a gift worth 10,000 SP free of cost. SP, story point. As Kim Hajin's importance increases in the world, you gain more SP. You can exchange points with SP. Question marks. This will be unlocked when the main story completes. The first words to catch my attention were synchronization and reset. I did not know what that meant, but I knew it was what changed my name from Kim Chondong to Kim Hajin, and gave me my face back. My stats also seem to have adjusted appropriately. Compared to Chondong, I was much weaker, but I obtained 10 spare points as compensation. With points, I should be able to raise the stats I want. Points are really nice. As the world's creator, I was well aware of the importance of points. An average adult had 1.5 points in each stat. Furthermore, this world didn't have a concept like leveling up, so points which could raise one's desired stats were extremely rare and expensive, obtainable only in dungeons and towers. Kim Su-hong's current magic power stat should be around 9. In other words, if I put the 10 points I had into raising my magic power should come to surpass Kim Su-hoo's. No, that wasn't the best plan. With only a stupidly high magic power, I would become a magician, but becoming a magician was exhausting. Not only was it expensive, it also required extreme effort and memorization. I would need to increase both intelligence and perseverance. but invariable stats couldn't be raised even with points. In other words, being a magician was out of the picture. What's up with the 3 question marks? The next line to catch my attention was obviously the suspicious question marks. Question marks will be unlocked when the main story completes. It was what caught my attention next after synchronization and reset. Unlocked when the main story completes. Perhaps this was the key to going back. Even if it wasn't, it was the only clue I had. The only problem was that I didn't know when the main story would end. If it referred to the storyline before I went on hiatus, I'd have to wait 10 years at the very least. One thought led to another. If I had to find a way back home, to achieve that I needed power or authority. To achieve power or authority I needed something called SP. To obtain SP, I needed to get involved in the storyline. To do that I needed to get stronger or stand out. Gun. Looks like it wasn't such a bad choice. Again met both of these conditions. First was power. A gun didn't require high stats to be useful. Close-ranged weapons, like the spear or sword, required equal distribution into all stats, while the importance of the stamina stat was less for a bow. The other stats were still necessary. On the other hand, speed, perception, and a tiny bit of magic power were enough to use a gun. In other words, it was easy to meet the minimum strength requirement with a gun. The second was specialness. No hero in this world uses a gun. It is more than enough to make me special. So it seemed I should continue using the gun, at least until my stats increased and I was mentally ready to fight monsters at close range. With my main weapon decided, I could move on to the next topic. Gift. I can create my gift. A gift held a special meaning for a hero, but it still had on to its dictionary meaning. The natural ability or talent for something. But the standard for this ability was high. At the very least, a gift had to be like a psychic ability. Gifts were separated into many categories. The 5 most common were weapon, physical, elemental, magic, and nature. As the main character, he worthily had 2 gifts. The gift he currently awakened was the weapon gift, class gift, Sword Saint. It was a super cheaty gift that gave him the world's protection in regards to swords. Simply put, his sword could cut water. Just this single gift was enough to make him the world's greatest hero. That was how the important gifts were. It didn't need to be complex. A stronger and more efficient gift was better. I began to type. Gift. Getting stronger every day. Null attribute. Every 24 hours, increase all stats by 0.1. Will this work? Even I found it shameless. When I went on hiatus, Kim Soo-hoo's strength stat was at 16. With this gift, I would obtain 36.5 into all stats in just a year. But since it could be reverted before it saved, I gave it a go. Novice consideration activated. A gift worthy of 10,000 SP will be created. 10,000 SP is not enough to create this gift. Its quality decreases. Getting stronger every day. High intermediate rank. Spirit attribute. Static. Cultivation physique. Every 24 hours, increase all stats by 0.0015. Would you like to save the modified result? I immediately cancelled. 1.5 into all my stats in 1,000 days. In 10,000 days, or 25 years, I would gain 25 into all stats, but I would be too old. Next, I wrote down a gift I thought of before. Gift. Master Sharpshooter. High intermediate rank. Null attribute. Can wield long-ranged weapons well. I didn't put much in detail into it. From my previous attempt, I realized what this laptop could do. No matter what I wrote, the laptop would modify it appropriately. Novice consideration activated. A gift worthy of 10,000 SP will be created. 10,000 SP is too much to create this gift. Its quality increases. Master Sharpshooter. High intermediate rank. Composite attribute. Static. Master Sharpshooter's training method. Unconditional proficiency in all long-range weapons. Doesn't mile eye. Can see farther away in more detail and accurately predict target movement path. Increase perception and speed by 3. Bullet time. Once every 24 hours, you can spend 3 minutes in bullet time. Oh? It was quite good. I especially liked that it applied to all long-range weapons. With this, I could use a bow if I wanted to. The 1,000-mile eye seemed pretty self-explanatory, and bullet time probably increased my shooting speed or the like. It was satisfactory, but there was still something I needed to change. Static. Rather than a static gift, which was a gift that could not grow, a gift that could get stronger was better. A phrase has been modified. Master Sharpshooter, low intermediate rank. Spirit attribute, evolving, grade 10, experience 0%. Master Sharpshooter training. Familiarity with all long-range weapons. 1,000-mile eye. Can see far away and somewhat predict target movement path. Bullet time. In combat, only once every 24 hours you can spend 3 seconds in bullet time. It fell from higher intermediate rank to low intermediate rank, and the skills became weaker overall. But in the grand scheme of things, an evolving gift was much better. Not to mention the main story would continue for at least 7 years. I'm getting sad again. Fuck. With a swear, I cleanly shook it off. Point 10. Next, it was time to go back to stats. How should I spend these 10 priceless points? Since invariable stats were invariable, I shouldn't be able to change them. In that case, I had to pick from the variable stats. However, I might be able to modify invariable stats. Should I exchange them for SP? Points could be exchanged with SP. Perhaps it was possible to change invariable stats using SP. But before making an irreversible mistake, I decided to give it a test. Thankfully, I had 64 SP. So I tried changing Perseverance stat from 5.010 to 5.5. Using 64 SP, you modified an invariable stat. You do not have enough SP. The value would be adjusted. Perseverance was changed to 5.06. It worked. My eyes widened. If this worked, what I should do next was obvious. I had to convert my points into SP and invest in variable stats. The question was which stat to choose. Intelligence, perseverance, luck, charm. To be honest, as a man, the charm was extremely enticing. Luck it is, but I knew all too well the importance the luck stat was in this world. I remember a line from my novel. Luck stat does not just affect the chances of finding treasure in dungeons, it also affects chances of getting bonus stats from training, chances to land a critical attack, and even chances to win the lottery. It was the best stat that applied to all sorts of situations. Life was like that. Luck was what mattered the most. Without hesitating any longer, I used 10 points to gain 10,000 SP. Using all 10,000 SP, I increased luck to its maximum. What I wanted was luck 10 out of 10. You do not have enough SP. The value will be adjusted. The laptop rejected my ridiculous wish and returned a reasonable compromise. Luck 9.1. 9.1 is the highest I can go, huh? Since 9 was the limit for humans, 9.1 was extremely high. But I didn't hit save and cancel the modification. Although it would take a bit longer, there was a more effective method. Luck 6.4 out of 10. First, I raised my luck from 6.3 to 6.4 and saved. Next to 6.5. Next, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8. Doing this repeatedly, a mysterious luck appeared. Your luck stat further increased by 0.1. A strange luck applies. Your luck stat further increases by 0.5. Luck 9.1 out of 10. With this method, I got my luck stat to increase 9.1 with just 9,000 SP. I had saved an entire 1,000 SP. For reference, the great sage of this world had 9.5 intelligence stat. As 9 was the limit for normal humans, spending the remaining 1,000 was unlikely to increase my luck any further. In exchange, higher and variable stats had exponential effects, but now it was better to use the remaining SP elsewhere. Perseverance should be good. In my current situation, training was key, but with my old mindset, I would never be able to digest Cube's training. I didn't even want to do 10 push-ups. Without hesitation, I put the remaining 1000 SP into Perseverance. I wrote, Perseverance, 8 out of 10. You do not have enough SP. The value will be adjusted. Perseverance, 6.6. No, I wasn't too satisfied. I hit save. Effective luck only applied after saving. And incredible luck applies. Your Perseverance stat increased from 6.6 to 7.2. Wow. Now I was satisfied. But I didn't feel any different. 4 was the standard for an average person. 7 should be the level of a talented individual. In any case, I was happy. As I increased my invariable stats whenever I gained SP, I was sure I was just as cheaty as the main character. Immediately after I had such a blissful thought, an error that could greatly affect the plot has been detected. From now on, invariable stats cannot be modified with SP. What's this? A warning window popped up on the laptop's screen, shutting down my plan for the future. Intervention by the world? Although I was displeased, I had no other choice. Nothing would change even if I argued with the air. Plus, I was already full of luck, which is what I wanted. Whatever. Without much thought, I closed the laptop and got up with a grin. Now it was time to test the gift I had created.